Hey guys, Steven here, back with another video, and today I want to talk about camera lenses and more specifically how many you actually need. I feel like a lot of people buy gear and lenses and stuff like that whenever there's a sale, but they don't really have a reason, or they just don't even buy when there's a sale. Like, that's even dumber to me. So like this lens right here, it's like 4K Canadian. I've used it like 5 times, so I don't want you guys to make the same mistake as me. I have 4 different lenses, and I know a lot of different photographers have different amount of lenses. I want to talk about ideally how many you want and what situations you would need them in and stuff like that. And I'm gonna do a whole run through of the lenses I use, why I use them, and the different factors that go into purchasing lenses and stuff like that. So if you guys enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up button and let's get straight into it. So to break down what I actually do and what I shoot, because it's going to be different than a lot of people, I shoot mainly events, like sporting events and concerts and stuff like that, and parties. So for me, a lot of time I'm far away from the subject, so I can't really get near them because that's kind of weird. Like if Drake's performing, he doesn't want a camera straight in his face, right? And you're not even going to have that level of access a lot of times. So I have to have a lens that can shoot from far away, like has a great focal length, right? And disclaimer, before I get into any like focal length talk or like talk about like any specifics, the lenses I'm using are for crop sensors, because I'm using the Sony a6300. I don't shoot on full frame, so you want to make that conversion if you're shooting on full frame. So the 2 big factors that goes into purchasing lenses and stuff like that, and how many you actually need, is first how much money you have. If you have a lot of money, you're gonna just buy every lens, or you're gonna buy the most expensive one and stuff like that. 2, which is more important, is what you actually shoot. So for me, like I said before, I have to shoot from far away. So my most used lens actually is the Sony 50mm 1.8, and the reason I actually use a lot of prime lenses is because they're cheaper. So I feel like a lot of people who have a lot of lenses actually have the cheaper ones because they can't buy a zoom lens that can, like a 24-70, because the 24-70 on Sony is like $1,800, like $2,000. This is like $300. So if you don't have a lot of money, what you'll have to do is buy a lot of prime lenses. So that's why I have 3 prime lenses, right? 90% of the times I shoot concerts, I shoot on the Sony 50mm 1.8. And from what I personally think, I think they turn out amazing. So realistically, I can use this only. Like, I would be fine just shooting on a 50mm, but because I do have the money sometimes and I can purchase new lenses, I have 3 other lenses with me. So the second lens I have is the Sigma 16mm 1.8, and the reason I got it was because of the focal length. Like, it's very wide, so I can use it for like videos like this. I can use it for vlogs and stuff like that. And I actually use this for concerts the second most because I'm in front of the stage most of the time, so I can get a wide shot. But I also have this Sigma 30mm 1.4. The reason I don't use this one is because it's too similar to the Sony 50mm 1.8. Like, I'll get a similar shot, and the autofocus isn't like native, like it's Sigma. But also this one's Sigma too, but the autofocus is much better. I'm not really sure. So like the autofocus is better on this, and it just gives a different perspective. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for concerts, obviously. This is almost strictly for YouTube stuff. So right now, this is for concerts. I can shoot video, photo, B-roll, or whatever. This is for YouTube, very wide shots. Sometimes I do a lot of formal events, and so like if there's a venue, I need the whole shot and stuff like that. So even in concerts, if I'm ever doing concert video, which I rarely do, I can get like the video of the whole crowd on a gimbal or something like that. That's usually beneficial. The reason I have this lens, it's probably my second least used lens. My most is this. So like the order I'm going in is the most used to the least used. So this is most, second most, and then this is the third most. So this is the Sigma 30mm 1.4, and the reason I got this was for portraits. The reason why this is so good for portraits is because it still like has a shallow depth of field, but it's sort of wide. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I made a whole video on why this is my favorite. I think on full frame, like the conversion is like around 45mm, and so anything that's 30 to 35 is ideal for me for portraits, and it gives me a lot of versatility in a way. So if I had to choose like one lens to use, it would probably be this one. just because it's sort of wide and sort of zoomed in as well. And I can probably shoot YouTube videos with this if I put it on a tripod and put it a little further from me. I could also probably shoot concerts with this as well. And then I have this lens, the Sony 70-200 2.8. I got this for like concerts and Raptors games. But realistically, you should rent a lens like this if you're not going to use it as much as I use my Sony 50mm, right? The opportunity comes sometimes where I have to shoot a game and stuff like that, but it's come like 3 times. And you can rent this for like maybe $300. I'm not sure about the rate specifically, but I could also rent this out if I wanted to. I just haven't found a use for it. I'm still happy with my decision because I know I'm going to end up using it in the long run. It's just I didn't have to buy it at this very moment, and I could use the money right now. I also had another Sony lens, the Sony 18-105 f4. And so the reason why I think how much money you have is very important is because how much money you have will determine first your camera and then what type of lenses you get. So if you have a camera like mine and you're trying to shoot on f4, like that's the highest you can go, f4, and you're trying to shoot in the nighttime, it's not going to work out because of the camera. But if you're shooting on full frame and you put on the Sony 18-105 at f4, it's going to be pretty decent. And with Sony, there's not a lot of cheap zoom lenses. There's literally that Sony 18-105. That's the cheapest one you can find. And there's maybe like 4 different zoom lenses. Like there's not a lot to choose from. So that means a lot of Sony people, like a lot of people who use the Sony a6000 series, they're going to have to like use different prime lenses like I'm using. So that's why I have 3. Like that's the only reason I have 3. As much as I love prime lenses, I would love to have just one lens, and that's the Sony 24-70 2.8. But the reason I haven't gotten it is because obviously the money, and yeah, that's just it, the money. And the reason why 24-70 is perfect on a full frame, not on a crop frame, is because it's wide enough to create like a vibe, like a vlog type of vibe. Like it's wide enough like that, and I could probably film videos like this. And then the 70mm is more than good enough to shoot concert stuff and even portraits. And it's a 2.8. It's not an f4. It's a 2.8. So 2.8 is good enough for me too, because most of the time I don't even shoot at 1.8. So if you just do a little rundown of like the pros and cons of having more lenses and the pros and cons of having less lenses, here we go. So the pros of having less is it's typically easier to travel with. Like if you just have a camera and like a lens or 2 lenses, it's very easy to just put in your backpack or something like that. Whereas with me, I actually have to pick and choose which lenses I have to bring with me. Or sometimes I try to bring it all. And it's always a hassle when it comes to traveling and commuting and stuff like that. And when you're traveling with like 1 or 2 lenses. Number 2, which is the most important, is it's easy to work with. So for me, when I'm in concerts, I have to keep switching off lenses and stuff like that. And it's not very fun. Even if you have a zoom lens and you have multiple other lenses, it's still going to be the same thing. You're still going to have to switch it off and stuff like that. Especially if you do gimbal work, it's probably the worst because you're going to have to readjust your gimbal and stuff like that every single time you switch off a lens. If you just had one lens, it wouldn't even be a problem. You won't ever have to worry about that. So oftentimes this is only achievable like working with less lenses if you have a zoom lens. If you guys want to work towards like a more efficient way of working, I would recommend saving up for a zoom lens and maybe have like a prime lens you really like stashed away. But this is also a similar debate to like primes versus zooms, right? Because zooms is going to be on the side of less and prime is going to be on the side of more. So the pros of having more lenses is obviously versatility. You're going to have a lot more to work with. You're going to have a lot of different looks that you can work with. Like you can have an 8mm lens and you can have an 85mm lens, and it'll achieve a lot more like versatility. Like you won't be able to achieve that if you just have 1 or 2 lenses. The quality oftentimes will be better because a lot of them will be different like prime lenses and stuff like that. I was gonna compare the prices of having more and less, but sometimes that gets tricky because you can have very, very cheap prime lenses and that can cost just as much as 1 zoom lens. Or you can have expensive prime lenses and have like a cheap zoom lens or something like that. So yeah, that's about it for this video. Hopefully it helped you out. Hopefully it provided you some insight and it helps you with your purchasing behavior and all of that. And when Black Friday or Boxing Day comes around, you make the right decision on whether to buy a lens or not buy a lens or something like that, and when to know to upgrade or not. I'm still working on that myself because I've been using the same gear for a long time. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hit the thumbs up button if you did. And yeah, my name's Steven, and I'll see you in the next one.